Welcome to the Psychic Pinup Podcast, the anything and everything spiritual podcast where we dive into hot topics, readings, viewer questions, and more. Thank you for tuning in. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive right into it.
Welcome back to the Anything and Everything Spiritual Podcast. I'm your host, Linda, also known as the Psychic Pinup. Today's episode is one I think so many of you are going to connect with because we are diving into listener questions all about psychic mediumship. These are the kind of questions I get asked constantly, whether it be online, at events, after readings, or in workshops. And honestly, they are questions that people are often curious about, but sometimes too nervous to ask. So let's dive into this. Today, we're going to dive in and I will be opening up the conversation and answering some questions that I get asked quite frequently about spirit, about intuition, mediumship, energy, and what it is really like to do this work. So go grab yourself a tea, coffee, drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Now, one of the questions I get asked quite frequently, and particularly when I am running workshops, that is, how do I know if I am really connecting to spirit and not just imagining it? And this is probably one of the biggest questions people ask when they begin developing spiritually. And honestly, even professional mediums go through periods of questioning themselves. I do all the time, actually. I think people assume once you become a working medium, all doubt will disappear. That is simply not true. We are human beings first. The difference between imagination and spirit communication often comes down to how the information arrives. When spirit communicate, information tends to come unexpectedly. It can feel spontaneous, random, and sometimes completely unrelated to what you were thinking about. For example, you may suddenly hear a name in your mind that makes absolutely no sense to you. And then the person you are reading for bursts into tears because that was their grandfather's nickname. Imagination usually feels controlled. Spirit communication feels received, if that makes sense. Probably not, but that's the best way I can describe it. Another big sign is consistency and validation. When you begin receiving information repeatedly that you could not possibly know, for example, dates, personalities, memories, symbols, etc., and it continues to validate over time, your trust grows. One thing I always tell students is this: Spirit communication is subtle before it becomes strong. For some reason, I find, and I was one also when I was learning, although I still am learning, is that people expect fireworks. They expect spirit standing in the room. But mediumship often starts as a feeling, a knowing, a symbol, a sound, a thought, a memory that drops into your mind. And the more you trust this, the stronger it will become. The thing is, fear can block the information also. Doubt can shut it down before it even has a chance to unfold. So, if you are developing spiritually, please just stop waiting for perfection. Start paying attention to the quiet moments, because spirit often enters softly. Another question that I get a lot is, can everybody develop psychic abilities, or are there only certain people gifted? Now, this may be where I might rub a few people up the wrong way. I absolutely believe everybody has an ability to connect to spirit in some form. Every single person. You do not have to be a natural born medium, inverted commas. In my mind, we all are. Your intuition is like a muscle. Some people naturally use it more. Some people have ignored it over years. And some people are just beginning to recognize it again. And I will say again because we had this from birth. The thing is, a lot of us have unlearnt it from a very young age. We have all had moments where we just knew something, haven't we? We have all had moments where you think about somebody and they call. We have all had moments where you walk into a room and instantly feel uncomfortable. We have all had dreams that later makes sense. That is our intuition. Now, mediumship is slightly different because mediumship involves communicating with spirit consciousness. Not everybody will become a professional medium, just like not everybody becomes a professional singer or athlete. But can people develop? Absolutely. I have seen students walk into workshops terrified, convinced they have no ability whatsoever, and months later they are giving accurate readings. The biggest thing that blocks people is not the lack of ability, it's the fear. It's the fear of being wrong. It's the fear of being judged. And the big one, the fear of trusting themselves. Because we live in a world that teaches logic over intuition. So many people have spent years disconnecting from their own inner knowing. Developing spiritually often means reconnecting to yourself. And sometimes that journey becomes deeply healing also. Another question is, what is the hardest part about being a psychic medium? Well, I think people sometimes romanticize this work. They see the spiritual side, the connections, the messages, the emotional moments, but what they don't see is the human side of actually carrying this work. And one of the hardest parts, in all honesty, is energetic exhaustion. When you are constantly working with people in grief, trauma, emotion, and people who are vulnerable, it can really be incredibly draining if you are not protecting your own energy. I have some strict boundaries that I won't deviate from, and I have to for my own sanity. Another difficult part about doing this work is the expectations. People sometimes come in for a reading wanting certainty about everything in their lives. But a spirit communication does not work like ordering from a menu. Really, it does not. You cannot force information from spirit. If they don't want to give it, they will not give it. And sometimes the messages people need are not always the messages they want. This is where the expectations come into play. I cannot cater for everybody. There's also emotional responsibility in this work. If you do this work, you are holding space for people during some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. That is something I never take lightly. And I think another hard part, honestly, is judgment. There are still people who dismiss psychic mediumship immediately without even understanding it. Yet, many of those same people have experienced intuition themselves. Go figure. I've learnt over time that I do not need to convince everybody, nor do I need to answer to others. My job is simply to work authentically, ethically, and with integrity. Now, this is one that I get asked all the time. Do spirits stay around us all the time? This is such an interesting question because people often imagine spirits standing around watching every single thing we do all day long. Personally, I don't experience it in that way. I believe, and this is in my opinion, I believe our loved ones in spirit can visit, connect, guide, and make their presence known, especially during important moments, emotional times, anniversaries, or periods where we really need support. But I also believe spirit exists differently than we do. We think in human terms, time, space, physical presence. Spirit communication feels much more fluid than that. Many people report signs after losing loved ones, whether it be songs, feathers, smells, dreams, butterflies, electrical disturbances, that's a biggie, and repeat numbers. And I think signs often happen when we are open enough to notice them. I guess the important thing is not to become obsessive looking for signs every second of the day. I think that's an important one. I have had conversations with people who spend all their time telling me about all these signs that they see all the time. It's a bit of a fine line, really, where the signs should just flow. Don't go looking, if you understand what I'm saying. It's like sometimes people become so desperate for a sign that they miss the subtle beauty of what is already happening around them. Spirit communication is often deeply personal for each and every one of us, and no two people will experience it in the same way. Okay. One question I would like to bring up here is, what's the biggest misconception about psychic mediums? I will jump in here and say people seem to think that we know everything. I promise you, we do not. People sometimes think mediums walk around predicting every world event, reading minds constantly, or knowing every detail about every person that they meet. It does not work like that. Psychic information comes through intentionally. It's like tuning into a radio station. You connect when you choose to connect. Put it that way. If I'm not working, I'm not switched on, I'm not connecting. I'm not receiving information. Period. Another misconception is that psychic mediums are somehow, inverted commas, above, close inverted commas, other people spiritually. Again, absolutely not. We are still human beings navigating life, relationships, grief, anxiety, mistakes, and growth just like everybody else. We are no different, guys. We are one of you. Being spiritually connected does not make someone perfect. And honestly, one of the healthiest things you can do in spirituality is avoid placing anybody on a pedestal. A good psychic medium should empower you, not make you dependent on them. That is incredibly important to remember. The goal should never be giving your power away. The goal should be reconnecting people back to themselves. I'm one of these psychic mediums who refuses to read for people if I have read them in the last 6 months, unless there is some emergency, drastic changes in their life. I don't like it. In fact, I would prefer them to even wait 12 months for another reading. You do not need to be going to psychics and mediums every couple of months. Do not get dependent on them. Do not rely on them for you to be making decisions. It's all about empowering you and your choices. Moving on. Last question. I quite enjoy doing these questions. Let me know if you enjoy them as well, and feel free to send some of your questions in. What advice would you give somebody beginning their spiritual journey? Advice would be is to slow down. Honestly, just slow down. I find people often rush spiritually, wanting to open every psychic ability immediately. They want instant connection, instant validation, instant awakening. It just does not happen. Spiritual growth is not a race. My advice would be is learn grounding first. Learn about discernment. Learn emotional awareness. And the biggie again, learn boundaries. Because opening spiritually without grounding can become overwhelming very quickly. I'd also encourage people to explore spirituality with curiosity rather than fear. Be curious. There is nothing to be fearful of. And another thing that you need to remember also is that you do not have to believe everything. If you are going to workshops, if you are sitting in circle, if you go on retreat, remember, you do not have to believe everything a facilitator is telling you. I encourage questions. So I will say, question things. Experience things for yourself. But most importantly, trust your intuition. And remember this, your spiritual journey does not have to look like anybody else's. We are all different. We all work differently. Some people will connect through meditation. Some will connect through dreams. Some will connect through nature. Some through creativity. Some through prayer. And some through pure silence. There is no single correct path. You find what sits with you, embrace that, empower that. Do not let anybody take that power from you. And spirituality should ultimately bring you closer to yourself, not further away from who you are. Well, I absolutely adored recording this episode because these are real conversations that people are craving right now. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you share it with your socials and tag me so I can repost you. And if you have a question you would love answered on a future episode of the Anything and Everything Spiritual podcast, send it through because I would love to do more episodes like this. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Until next time, trust your intuition, stay grounded, and keep your heart open to the magic that exists both within you and around you. Bye for now.
You have been listening to Linda, the Psychic Pinup. Linda is a psychic medium based on the New South Wales south coast of Australia. You can connect with her via her website, thepsychicpinup.com.au, or join her on her weekly live feeds on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all under the same name, The Psychic Pinup. Thanks for listening.